Hi from Los Angeles. This is the Microsoft 365 Development Biweekly Community Call. My name is David Warner with Microsoft, and I will be your host today. We have an incredible call scheduled for the day. We're going to get the latest on PnP Framework and Core SDK extensions, latest on PowerShell, Yo Teams, Microsoft Graph Toolkit, Team samples, Power Platform samples, everything amazing going on in the community. And then what time will it be? Picture time. We all enjoy showing the community how amazing you all are. Then we've got a dynamic duo of presenters today. Tommy is going to cover TeamsFX.net current updates, and then Chris Kent is going to have a double dose of list formatting magic. The warrior horses are back. Nee! We're all excited, no doubt. Opportunities to participate in this community, you ask? There are aplenty. We absolutely invite you to provide a demo on a solution or a technical pattern. Perhaps it's something you've created within your organization that you can share with the community. Perhaps something you've shared on your own free time that you'd like to share with the community. We want to see it all. You can also contribute in GitHub if you would like to provide one of those samples, and we'll talk about how more you could do that here in just a few moments. But we absolutely welcome it, and we'd like to hear any feedback. What's working? What's not working? What could be better? If you would like to request a demo spot, the link there on your screen, aka.ms/m365pnp/request/demo, is available for you. Fill out that form and we will absolutely get back to you on what is available times. There are so many resources in this community available to you. There's 2 different video channels for you to take advantage of at YouTube for the community and developer, which are driven by Microsoft. We have a number of open source initiatives around SharePoint, PnP, Office Dev, Microsoft Graph that you can utilize to make your development life easier and your experience in Microsoft 365 better. We have a plethora of samples, so many amazing samples, team samples, SPFX, Power Platform, list formatting, script samples. It goes on and on and on. These are all there provided by amazing contributors like yourself in the community for the community to take advantage of accelerating anything that you may need to do within the Microsoft 365 ecosystem. They are absolutely open to be contributed to, and this may feel like there are too many things to keep track of with all these AKA links, but you only need to remember one, and that is aka.ms/m365pnp will give you access to all of these amazing resources and tools. One of the newest initiatives within the PnP world is script samples. This is managed by Paul Bullock. We've got new scenarios on how to delete custom SharePoint list designs, and there are updates on the SharePoint recycle bin by Adam, and that first one is by Reshmi. So we want to thank all of our sample contributors. Reach out if you have any questions. This is a great, very wide spectrum of opportunity to contribute here. It's so many opportunities. We've all written scripts in little pieces of toolkits and utilities that we may need to utilize. Absolutely welcome. Over 200 plus scripts now, and we have a badge for it. So we absolutely want to recognize all of the amazing contributors that are doing that there. If you would like to contribute, but you're not quite sure how to contribute, then we want to provide hands-on guidance on how you can take advantage of that. Things like if you've never submitted a pull request, we understand that there may be some confusion around that. We are going to provide you in our Sharing is Caring sessions, hands-on guidance on how you can do exactly that, amongst all these other session topics as well. We just had last week a Power Platform samples first-time contributor. We had multiple first-time pull requests in that session. That means it was the first time they ever actually did a pull request, which is fantastic. So we love to see that. It's the spark that starts the fire of contributions, and we absolutely appreciate everything that everyone's doing. We have community docs set up and Power Platform, and we're scheduling out some more, so please don't hesitate to sign up. It's absolutely free, safe space opportunities for you to learn how you can get more involved in a collaborative environment. Once you've done that and you've contributed on many, many levels, we want to celebrate and recognize all the amazing work that you are doing, and we're going to do just that with the recognition program. This is a recognition program that's powered by Credly using digital badges, the same badges that Microsoft provides to you for those certifications. You can attach them to your LinkedIn profile, so they are official and accredited. You can include them on your resume, website, share them with your clients and managers, letting them know how amazing and involved in the community you are. We do need you to opt in, aka.ms/M365PNP recognition. We will tie your email address to a Credly account, and we will be able to award you those badges. And you only need to sign up once. We have regular scripts running to check who has contributed. But if you do have any questions, please don't hesitate to reach out to myself or Hugo Bernier or April Dunham, and we will absolutely get any questions you may have answered. The agenda for the 19th of April, Microsoft 365 platform call. Now, this is a platform call, meaning that all of the presenters are direct from Microsoft, so you're getting it directly from the source. On Tuesday at 8 a.m. Pacific time is going to be Nick on the latest of Microsoft Graph Data Connect datasets, and then Monuka on integrate graph connector content within Office.com, and Divnika and Michelle on introduction to apps that extend across Teams, Outlook, and Office. So don't hesitate to sign up for this. You can get the recurrent invite from that link there, aka.ms/m365-dev.call. And again, this is a fantastic call to get on your calendar because you're always going to get the latest and greatest from the direct sources that are working on the projects at Microsoft. Next, let's move into our Pnp .Net libraries. There is an update on version 1.9 has been released, prepping 1.10, so merging the pending PRs. In the coming weeks, we'll see more PR merging, improvements, bug fixing, and testing. And then on the core SDK side, we've got 623,000 downloads. That's amazing. Version 1.6 has been released, and in this case, prepping for 1.7. So the focus in the coming weeks is on craftsmanship, transformation framework, and tutorials. So over 180,000 tenants have been utilized here, and that is just incredible. So well done. Congratulations to everyone involved there. Thank you. We'll next move to Pnp Powershell, and we will turn it over to Gautam.
Yep, so about Pnp PowerShell is one of your favorite ways to connect, PowerShell ways to connect to SharePoint Online. So 1.10 got released a couple of days ago, major release. So go check it out. What's cooking? So something interesting is cooking related to the autocomplete stuff. So if you are using Pnp PowerShell and you want to see some autocomplete in action, we are working on improving that functionality. And we also improved the get Pnp search configuration command. So in case there are promoted results and then there are too many promoted results, we added pagination for that. And we also added an capability to exclude or include visual promoted results. So yeah, that's pretty much in the current nightly release. But yeah, work goes on in related to the autocomplete stuff. Yeah, that's pretty much from my end, David.
Awesome. Thank you, Gautam. Very, very cool. Fantastic. Next up is Yo Teams with Victor.
Yes, so we are planning the Big 4 release in May. It is all dependent on the Teams.js SDK version 2.0, and they are coming closer to that one. And with that, as we mentioned 2 weeks ago, we will do some deprecations based on telemetry on stuff not being used, so it's be much more slimmer. Statistics-wise, the interesting thing is that the usage has gone up. This is essentially the same amount of new Teams projects created, but we can see from telemetry that they are not just being test projects or one-off kind of things, that it's actually being built real applications with this. So that's really cool, I think. And as you can see as well, the big bump we have on one of the dependencies is due to that the dependency is being used by the official Teams toolkit as well. So we're sharing sort of the same kind of packages there, which is really great collab with that team as well. But yes, in May, hopefully, we will have the new version where you can build tabs for Office.com, Outlook, both the client and the web as well, and create those tabs. So that's available everywhere, and that will be possible with the Yeoman Generate for Teams in version 4. Thanks.
Thanks, Victor. That is awesome, and love to see that telemetry. That is a massive spike there. So well done, excellent. Next, we're going to get into Microsoft Graph Toolkit. Now, MGT, or Microsoft Graph Toolkit as we know it, is a collection of components that make our life easier in tapping into the graph. You can absolutely add these to a variety of development projects, whether it be SPFX or even using it in the content query React content query web part that is available. Super, super powerful. One of the newest cool things about it is you've got a MGT samples repository. So you can see more about that at aka.ms/mgt/samples. So absolutely take a look at that. What's next on the roadmap is aligning all the Toolkit components with Fluid UI web components. So look for that. We are excited to see what is on the horizon there. Now we'll move into Microsoft Teams samples with Bob German.
Hi, everyone. Well, yes, I'm pleased to announce. Now, you've already seen this sample and how cool it is. If you were tuned in on St. Patty's Day, you saw Mark Allen and Tom Riesing demonstrate a Teams app that will migrate your filters from G Suite over to Outlook. And the demo recording and the sample are there. It's now published and fully supported. If you have a great Teams app to share, we'd love to know about it. Please check out that same URL, aka.ms/team samples, for a sortable, filterable version of the team samples and instructions on how to contribute to your own sample. And back to you, David.
Awesome, thank you, Bob, and thanks for the amazing collaborative work there to get that available. That is super, super cool. Let's move into Power Platform samples with April Dunham.
Thank you, David. We have one new sample, which is pretty cool, showing how to do invoice automation using SharePoint syntax. So a great hybrid solution with Power Platform, SharePoint, and all the AI goodness mixed in from Steve there. So be sure to check out his awesome sample. And if we have any other Power Platform related Power Apps, Canvas apps, model driven, Power Automate, Power BI, Power Virtual Agents, any other samples like that you'd like to share, please get those added to the repo. And we have another Power Platform contributor sharing his caring session on May 9th. So make sure you check that out. Like David said, we had several first-time pull requests on the last one. So if you want to get started contributing, make sure to check that session out. Back to you, David.
Awesome. Thank you, April. Well, the time has come. Optional picture time. Everyone can turn on their cameras if they would like to participate and be included in the together mode. Yep, Bess is taking over.
My thing, and I'll move this in here. We have 50 seats in the room. Let's do some variants now. Let's flip on that one. So we haven't done this for a while. Not yet recording. Let's wait a while. Let's wait a while. We have 50 seats in the room, 50 seats going once, going twice. Not yet. Let's wait for a few more people to join. This is looking really good. Yeah, I'm putting my camera on as well. I'm going to click the record. Let's wait a few more seconds. We still have few seats in the room. I even got to the room. And let's do some hand waving, everybody. So thank you for joining once again. Awesome to have you on this weekly course, and great to see the smiling faces and the real people behind of the community names. Thank you, everybody. Awesome, brilliant. Going to do a GIF animation out of that. Thank you. And David, back to you.
Thank you, Vesa. All right. Well, for the brief few seconds that we're all looking at it, we're going to move into our awesome presenters of the day. Our first demo is going to be by Tommy Gouls on TeamsFX.net current updates. Tommy, take it away.
Yep, I will. You're not visible on the screen. I have to say this. For the past 10 times I've seen you presenting, you're floating on the screen. So.
No, not today.
Okay.
Not today. It's a technical audience. You need to be very careful.
Yeah. Official, this is not fun.
But there I am, right?
Exactly.
Hi, my name is Tommy. I'm team lead at Solvion. These are some ways to reach me, but it's not about me today. It's about the content, and the content of the next couple of minutes is the Microsoft Teams framework, TeamsFX, and we are today looking at the .NET side of things. I tried to create this, I would say, slide. I think cool kids now call it infographic or something else, to make clear some of the pretty nice choices Microsoft did in terms of naming, meaning there is TeamsFX, there's Teams Toolkit, and if you read through documentation or read through Twitter or read through different blogs, you will see a lot of mixture of all those different names. And this thing here tries to make it a little bit clearer what is part of TeamsFX and what are the components of it. So TeamsFX actually is a library that targets more than one language. TeamsFX targets React and .NET. So not only the client side, but also the server side. And that's just the state of today. There is no fixation on only those two platforms. I'm pretty sure there are already ideas on how to get different tech stacks also into this Teams framework. But the idea is that as a developer, I get something where I can start already with this, the need of authentication, all those things that we would need to do anyways all the time we create enterprise applications, that this is already done in a library. And of course, this is available for React. That's basically what Victor was referring to compared to the Pnp Teams generator. So all those scaffolding, all those creation of elements. And the architecture of the Teams framework is that there is a CLI in place, where currently the team is working on making like one CLI to be able to use it on multiple platforms, on multiple technology stacks. So in React and in .NET, they are not there yet. As in general, just to keep that in reference, we're still talking about something that is in preview. We are hoping, or we are like kind of waiting for build, and hopefully, fingers crossed, there is a release of TeamsFX, in my case for .NET, coming. We will see later today that there were some changes, apparently this week, with TeamsFX.NET. So kind of good feeling that there will be something in the coming weeks that will be released. But then there is the wording of the Teams Toolkit, and the Teams Toolkit basically is just the extension that you use in Visual Studio Code for React, or Visual Studio for .NET and Blazor programming. As we will focus on .NET today, the path is that you will see this sample application that is basically in there out of the box. So what's in the box? And of course, there are 7 points for all that don't get the reference with what's in the box. There are 7 points here listed. F5 experience, you open up Visual Studio, press F5, and you're good to go. And also the framework already comes with tools and comes with configuration options to create Azure AD application, but also to create Azure resources and to deploy them. We will see that in the demo. So there's a pretty much thinking already there how to really deploy stuff, not only run it locally on machine. Single sign-on is basically built in and ready to go. We will see that and how this is done in the newest version. Of course, everything we will see in Blazor is on top of the JavaScript SDKs, because technically the Blazor implementation is to some extent a wrapper to what is available through the JavaScript SDK. There is a built-in Microsoft Graph authentication client so that we can use the SSO token for Teams to then make our calls through Microsoft Graph, for example. And they changed a little bit the way how on the .NET side you install the Teams Toolkit. It used to be an extension. That's the thing when you open up Visual Studio, click on extensions, and then you browse through basically like the NuGet feed, all the possible extensions that are available. And they moved it to components. Components are those kind of artifacts in Visual Studio that you deploy or install through the Visual Studio installer. That changed with the version 17.1 of Visual Studio that was released, if I remember correctly, on February 15 this year. Teams Toolkit moved to the component way, and now basically it's part of the updates that you will get with Visual Studio. At the moment, they are thinking of maybe going also in a way that they just update the component, but at the moment they are heads down in the code to get everything for a GA release ready, and then they need to decide what would be the upgrade and update story. And we will see, of course, there are Blazor templates at the moment for a bot and a tab, and that's basically what we are looking at it right now. So I open up Visual Studio 22 preview. That's important because we are looking at the latest and greatest. So we are looking at the version that's available since 2 days with the latest and greatest also from the Teams Toolkit. Remember, preview. So we're looking at stuff that you should not use in production yet, but I think it's important to already know what will be available in the future. I click on create a new project, wait a couple of seconds for my Visual Studio instance here, and here it is, Microsoft Teams app. That's the template. It's the wizard that we will now go through to create or scaffold a new project. Click on next, give it a cool name, PNP demo, include the current date. I'm good with the name. Okay, create. And then that's already a screen that changed multiple times through the journey of this toolkit. We are now asked for, do we want to include a tab and a bot or both? We will start with a tab. It's way simpler. And of course, you can then create a bot as well if you want to later on, but let's start just with a tab. And I click on create. Takes a couple of seconds. And then Visual Studio hopefully opens up with our new solution and project. Here we are. And now we are seeing basically outlined the structure of the project. We will walk through the structure first, then we'll do a short demo and look at all the options that are available in terms of what we get from the scaffold project. So first of all, that's a Blazor server application. So there are a couple of artifacts that are already known probably to everyone that already created the Blazor server application. Important, not WASM, not WebAssembly. We're talking Blazor server here. So we have our programs. Yes, we're using .NET 6. So it's all the greatness of .NET 6 and the minimal stuff you need with namespace, global usings, all that stuff is possible. But of course, there are Razer files, and then there are pages and components. So what's the first thing? We have our page here, we have a tab, and as you probably already can think of, let me check here. I want to do that first because it's not existing. I'm careful. There is a tab. So that's basically the first thing, the first endpoint that we want to reach, because that's the endpoint of the application that we want to work in Teams with. But before we do that, there is a nice getting started text file that basically guides you through all the steps, takes care of ngrok if you're using the bot part, because you need tunneling for the bot framework to recognize your endpoint. We don't need that in our case because we are only working with a tab here. So there is something we can skip to step 3. Let's do that. And then here you see select project Teams Toolkit. And that's new in that release, that we can go to Teams Toolkit under project and click on configure Microsoft Teams app. I will do that right now. That's important. That used to be part of the automatic scaffolding. So what is the Teams Toolkit now doing? It's creating an Azure AD registration, app registration. You see that now in my console here, and creating manifest files and all those kind of things that we need to be able to run our Teams application. And it's very cool that it's now on click and not automatically when we create stuff. So we would have the option to prepare something, to set something up in the way that we want it and not automatically something gets created. That's important. So I don't like templates or solutions that take my just initial information and go to the cloud and do something there. If you have another question, how the heck does the toolkit now know what account to use? That's because I already used it yesterday and it remembered the account. If you do it the first time, you basically get a login screen from Azure that says, okay, pick your account, what account should we connect this instance to, and then you always use the same basically account, and you can change that very easy. Also, something new, back in the days, you would have to reinstall the toolkit to make that work. What we are now able to do is that I can click now on basically F5. Need to let the solution build, of course, and then with the launch settings, it will open up a local browser here. Let's wait for a couple of seconds, and the browser should start with the app install screen, or the add an app screen, I want to call it, with our demo here. Here we are. So you see the name, PNP demo, our current date. That's the artifact or the name we gave it through the wizard. It says local debug. Click on add. And then I will get a static tab with a super simple starting page in here. The first thing that we need to understand here is that this tab, of course, is now iframed into my Teams application, and still it already has my name because it is using the built-in SSO token, or the token that comes with the JavaScript SDK, and takes my name out of the token. That's the first thing. And the second thing is, that's basically the code line, but we will have a look at the code in a couple of seconds. Second thing is I can click on authorize here, and then I will see the consent screen, because in the backend, the authorize button basically wants to make a call to Microsoft Graph to get my user picture, my email, I think. That's something the app has permission to it, but it needs to be consented first. I'm using my Microsoft 365 developer tenant here. So with the same account, I'm of course a global admin. I can consent on behalf of my entire organization. Click on accept, and I will get my picture back. Technically, what happened now is that for the first run, just the initial load of the tab, the Teams Toolkit used the SSO token it got from Teams to get my basic information. And in the second run, it used that SSO token to get a graph token. And let's have a look at the code, what actually was happening right now here. First of all, we opened up the tab. Tab is pretty straightforward, and I will make it a little bit, font size a little bit bigger. So hopefully this is readable for everyone. Have my component here, and there's a welcome component. So the project already shows you like the Blazor way of working with using components, very simple. I have components here, and I can define basically what is part of my welcome component. And you see here a couple of Fluent tabs because it's already using Microsoft Fast Components, Fluent UI. That's a Blazor wrapper from the Fluent team, and that is available and built in through NuGet packages already in the project. So couple of examples how you can also use the Fluent UI already built in the project. Remember, I'm on the screen right now. There are a couple of tabs. It's those things here that are defined in those Fluent tabs here. And then there is one thing, another component that is just called graph, nothing more. So we have a graph component over here, and that basically takes part or takes care of the part in the code that we saw first here with the button, and that now shows us our profile photo, because you see here, we show the Fluent button that we clicked on to click to authorize if we need consent. If we have consent and we are loading, we're just showing the profile card. And if we already have a profile loaded, then we show the profile card with parameters. How do we get those parameters? How is that connecting, or how is the connection working here? That's typical Blazor way of doing things. And I will stop the debugging for a second, because I'm pretty sure there are people on the call that are like, what is he doing here? There's C# now in the client side, basically mixed with HTML, and there's a code block down here. I don't like that. No problem with that. Let's go over here, create a new item. Let's make that a class file. And we call that graph.razer.cs. Visual Studio realized that, okay, it needs to be under the Razer component here. I get a short error message because I need to make that a partial class, because how Blazor is working, Blazor is basically building on top of the Razer file already a code behind file. And there is a class already present that is not shown in Visual Studio. So I would need to make it a partial class to be part of the package that gets sent to the compiler in the end of the day. And now I can go into my Razer component and go up to the code block, take everything from here. Yep, everything, and I mean everything. Here we are. And move that over to my backend file. That's basically the idea how you can, of course, separate your implementation of the UI and your code behind files. There are now a couple of usings that I would need to add. Let's do that for a second. But if we go through the code first, there are parameters, okay, then we have the user profile. That's basically Microsoft Graph component. So you see that, or a Microsoft Graph class from the Microsoft Graph client SDK, and we see simple Blazor lifecycle class here on initialized async. We are starting. We are questioning, has the user permissions for a current scope? Over here, user read. And if that's the case, we are showing the profile. So it's typical C# code now, but of course, using what the Teams Toolkit basically offers us. So you see here, profile is a request graph.me request get async. Pretty straightforward, because in the end of the day, that's a graph service client directly coming from the Microsoft Graph.net SDK. So that's nothing special for Teams. The thing that is special for Teams is in the graph service client in here, because they have a graph authentication provider in here. And let's include that namespace here as well, because we are using Microsoft Teams FX to create a graph authentication provider that implements a certain interface, of course, because that basically takes the token that it gets from your JavaScript SDK from Teams in the background, infuses it in the .NET side of things, and creates a graph service client based on top of that bearer token that is exchanged in the backend for you. That's super important. How is that done? Basically, they're using the JavaScript interop options that are available just in Blazor. Because if we have a look in here, there is, of course, some kind of JavaScript. I hate to admit it. You need a couple of lines to make that work. But if you have a look here, there's JavaScript file that, if you're familiar with Teams development, there is an initialization method function that you just click on or call Microsoft Teams, the SDK, to initialize, to get the context, and all those different methods you need basically to make a Teams application work. And that's basically encapsulated in this Teams file here, because through JavaScript interop, a base feature of Blazor, you're loading a module here, and then you're just invoking those functions. In the .NET side, in the C# side, you just click on Get Teams Context, or you call Get Teams Context, and that's basically invoking the connected or configured JavaScript method in the background. And through the JavaScript SDK that we are all familiar from Teams, we get the token, and basically, so it's going through the whole chain, coming back to my graph file, so that I can say here, okay, get a new graph authentication provider, make that work, and okay, get a client and do the simple thing here and make a profile picture request, and we're good to go. So in case we want to take that a little bit further, what we can do is now, just need to make that reference again. Of course, we could add now our own calls to Microsoft Graph, our own, let's say we want to load multiple teams, or we want to have a look at some options, some data endpoints in Microsoft Graph. No problem, you just can call it from here and use what you're already familiar with in terms of the .NET SDK client from Graph. But be aware, if I switch over to my Azure tenant for a second, and let's reload that and search or create that, filter that. So you see, that's basically the Azure app registration that got created when I clicked on project Microsoft Teams Toolkit and create the stuff. And of course, I would need to add more API permissions in here. So if I want to make additional calls to Graph, and if I want to make additional parts working here, I would need, of course, to add scopes, add permissions in here, because if I just would call the Graph now, and let's say I want to, I don't know, list all the teams that I'm part of, it would get an unauthorized error, because the application in the backend using the on behalf of flow isn't scoped to that resource. And then, of course, I would not go to in there and change that in the API permissions. One last thing I want to show is that, of course, those components and everything we are using in here, you can also do some cool things, because you can go in there and add another project to that solution. and you can add a Razer class library. So we are using now Razer class library. Let's make that Pnp today's date library. Yeah, good for me. You see, adding now a new project in my solution in here. I go in here and make a reference, a project reference, just for the sake of the demo, to that component library. And that would allow me to reuse common components in my Teams application. We will do that now for a very, very short and simple use case, but just think of it. You could extract all the components from that demo, take them to your own Razer library project, and then with the things that are coming with .NET MAUI, for example, there is something that is called Blazor Hybrid, where you can use Blazor components to create applications for the desktop, for Android, for iOS, for Teams, so to speak, with the same component library. So that opens up a lot of options for the .NET developers in the future to create stuff only once and reuse it. And we want to, or I want to show a short use case what that can look like. I have something prepared over here. So let's take that prepared component and add it here. So it should be just like this. So I create something like a proper background file. And I would need also to add, of course, the actual JPEG file I want to have be part of that solution. Let's add that in here as well. So we have a component that is just our proper background, and that basically just wraps whatever we are putting in the component with a class, or in a div with a class, and I have a Razer file that says, okay, I want that to be part of that folder in here. Let me double check. I need to move that file over here to the root folder. Here we are. And then I would go into my tab page. Where are we? Pages, tab, take my welcome part, and I could say proper background here. Take that, and basically marshalling all the samples or all the built-in sample with my new proper background file. Let's try to make a build. All right, let's create a build basically. Yeah, 10 seconds and you will see where I'm heading, because I'm installing now this component here, or this Teams application again. And you see a nice background with a nice handover actually to Chris.
Awesome. Very cool, Tommy. Thank you. Some really, really cool stuff. Pasted some links in the chat associated to Tommy's demo, and I'll let you answer any questions in the chat. But in the interest of time, Chris, if you'd like to take over for your double dose of list formatting, Return of the Warrior Horses.
Yeah. Seeing that?
Absolutely. Take it away.
All right. Okay, good. I'm Chris. Hello, everybody. All right, let's do it. Let's talk about some list formatting. It's been a while, and it's exciting stuff. So we're going to talk about something new here. And when I do that, I like to show kind of where we are with list formatting. So when we first started out with list formatting, it was just column formats like you see here. And, you know, if we take a look at kind of what's available, you'll see that we've got quite a bit more. All right, so in general, you've got a surface you're going to render to, right? Whether that's a list view, web part, Microsoft List, you know, whatever that is. There's going to be some standard UI elements, right, that are kind of all built in here. And then you're going to have your data, right? So standard rendering looks like Excel in the browser. Very exciting. But of course, you can then compile, you know, you can add all these column formats to one or more columns across there, and that's pretty cool. And then in addition to that, you can add a view format that is a row class. It's got an additional row class. And when you do that, you can combine that with your column formats, and it can just highlight individual rows based on whatever condition you want. Or you can go a little further and you can specify a row formatter where you can take that data portion and you can completely override row by row and draw your own stuff however you want. And you can even combine that with a tile props format, also known as the gallery when you select that, and you can have both those in the same format. And then if you want to go a little further, you can hide that standard UI, right? And whether you implement your own or not, that's up to you. And then even then you can have the groups, right? So you got your groups and you got your group footers and you have your aggregate footer down here, and you can apply group props to format it in there. And you can also apply a footer format here to apply to the aggregate row. It's getting kind of crazy. Even further though, you've got the form, and by default, if you've got a column format, that's going to show up in the out-of-the-box render of the form. All right, you can customize, what columns show up here. You can even do that conditionally based on expressions. But you can go forward and you can add a form header format, and you can add a form footer format, and you can even control. It's not really a format, but you control the number of sections and what columns are in those sections with the body layout. And now what we're going to talk about now is kind of the latest addition, which is command bar props. Ooh, fancy. Well, we're going to see what these do and how they kind of fit in with everything else. But I think it's important when we're looking at a pretty, broad landscape like this, where we've got all sorts of stuff happening, right, and all sorts of different ways they can interact, is understand these kind of fall in three major buckets. All right, so if we take a look at that, there's column formatting, view formatting, and form formatting. The reason I want to call that out is because it makes a difference in where they're stored and so how they get applied to your list. So column formatting, those get stored with the field on the list or even at the site column level. And then it doesn't matter which view they're in. If you haven't applied a full row formatter on it, they're going to show up just like that. So you control them that way. Whereas view formats are applied to the view. So you can have all sorts of, numbers of these, right? So every view could have their own set of those. And then form formatting applies to the list itself. And so you really just have one set of those. So the thing I want to point out with command bar props is this will feel like a configuration item for the list, but it is not. It is a customization for your view. And that's going to be important because it'll almost feel like you're doing something here with security or something else, and you're not. You're just changing how things look. And so, which can be very, very helpful. And if you use that to keep things kind of an on-rails experience and to guide users into what they need to do, that's the perfect use case for this. But if you're trying to lock things down, there are other ways to do most of that, right? And generally, that's going to be through security and permissions. Okay, got that out of the way. Let's actually take a look at what the heck I'm talking about. So we go back to our classic Warrior Horses site. We get rid of that before Vesa unmutes. Perfect. Okay, so we come over here, and we've all got our Warrior Horses site, right? And we've all gone through and we've deployed a recruitment tracker because we're trying to hire more horses, and we all know it's a horses market, right? So we've got to get those horses in here. And so what we've done is we've deployed, the standard new template here for recruitment tracker. And that comes with a couple of nice column formats around our choices. And that's cool. In fact, we've even applied a custom icon in here. And there's a video about that if you really want to look into that. What I'm more interested in today, though, is this guy up here. So we've got this command bar, right? So traditionally, we haven't been able to do anything with that, right? There are a few list settings that might affect some of that, right? Like you can have additional items in the new and so on. But let's talk about what can we do here. So we do that with a view format. So I'm going to format the current view, right? And so you can see I've already got alternating row styles added there. So if I jump into advanced mode, you can see that I just had that as a wizard. So that's there. So I'm going to actually delete that because we don't want that for now. Let's make that a little bigger. Now you'll notice that when I select everything and delete it, I don't get any kind of IntelliSense really, right? So that can be irritating. That's because I deleted the schema reference. So if you do that like me all the time, just save an empty one, close it, and format the current view again. Go to advanced mode. Oh, I got my schema reference back, and I don't have to remember this strange URL, right? But the reason you want that, again, not required, but you want it because you get the IntelliSense, right? So now if I type C, I get command bar props. So I can hit that. And sometimes the IntelliSense auto selects the next one we hit tab. So we'll pretend that didn't happen. I'm going to type in commands. And then I get an array here. And now I can do something pretty cool, right? I can specify different commands here. And I reference them by key. So I type in key, and I automatically get this IntelliSense. Now, I'm not doing anything special here. There's nothing installed here. This is out of the box, right? So I start to see these are kind of the internal name for all of these commands. So we'll just start with the big guy here, the new button, because that's obvious. We'll say new, right? And we type in new. It should be in there somewhere, but we'll just type it in ourselves. New, right? So that's going to get the new command. And the thing we're going to just say is hide. And we're going to say true. All right, let's hide that thing. Preview that. Hey, we don't have a new button anymore. Wow, wow, wow. That's pretty awesome, right? So we can start to edit these buttons and change some key things about them, right? So we can remove the new button. Now, again, we didn't really prevent anyone from adding new items, right? So you can hit this edit in grid view and I can add a new item that way, or I can go through the API. There's a lot of different ways you could do that. So this is more about guidance, right? So if you're saying, hey, this is a list we added through Power Apps, we want you to create new items through Power Apps, well, that could be a great way. Just remove the options here as a good reminder to keep people kind of, on rails. Again, you're just providing some guidance around the experience so that you're not confusing users by giving them options you don't want them to use. Okay, so going a little further here, so we can hide it, right? Well, we can do something else here, right? We can actually say our text, right? So maybe this isn't new. We want to say add something, or we want to give it some other context, right? So in this case, we'll say that. Now our new button says add something. That's pretty cool. And maybe we want to go even further and we want to say our icon. We hate that plus for some reason. All right. We want to say our icon name is cat because this is a list about cats, we'll pretend, right? So now we have our cat icon and I'm getting those icons from the Fluent UI. And again, if you go to flycon.io, you can search for all sorts of icons here. And so if you type in new up here, maybe you still see that plus button, but maybe you're like, ooh, but I want something extra fancy, right? This is a comment thing. So I say comment add, I'm going to grab that. Let's go back there and let's change my icon name to that. And we'll preview that. And now we've got a nice icon. Again, we're providing some guidance about how we might want to do that kind of thing, right? So we can do icon name. Let's go a little further, right? And let's say title. I'm going to say, yeah, boy, right? Just making this stuff up. And now we get a tooltip that, I don't know if you can see that way. You can't see it when I zoom, but there's a tooltip, right? So title affects the tooltip, so we can give a little more context, right? Maybe we've renamed this, we've given it a cat icon, we want to say, just kidding, this adds a new item, right? So we can do that. That's neat. And we can go a little further, right? So we could also say, let's get rid of this new button, or let's move the new button over, right? So now we're going to say our position. Our position is a 0-based index starting from the left. So this is position 0, position 1, 2, 3, and so on. And so now we can say, actually, we want, it to be over a little bit. So we can preview that. And what did I do? I've hidden the new button somehow. Well, that's good. Well, the idea is we can move it over. Let's just go back and make sure we've got position, and we'll put it at 1. There we go. Make sure I'm not messing it. There we go. Position 1, position 2. How about that? Well, then you're going to have to believe me. Let's try this again. Edit and grid view. We'll just switch it over to this guy. There is some interesting stuff with the primary button, so we'll come back to that as well. But let's go with position on this. So this is that grid view. Let's change its position to 3. Let's see if we get that to work. There we go. So the idea here is we can reorder these. Oh, I'm wondering if I typed it wrong. Oh, you're right. I see, Jim. I typed position. Yeah, that's not going to work out. Okay, so it is important to type these correctly. All right, so position 3. All right, that's cool. I can actually go a little further. What if I wanted to say edit and grid view is my primary button, right? So let's get rid of that and let's just say primary. And I can say primary is true. And what primary does is it's going to affect that background. But you'll notice something strange here. Didn't actually do it. And the reason is primary true only works in position 0. So just keep that in mind. It's a little strange. So if you put it in position 0, then you could have it be that primary look, right? So I can turn that off and preview that, and you can take that away. So that's pretty cool. There's a little more you can do as well. So the idea is here, if I want to take that grid view, I still want it around. I don't want to hide it, right? But I want to put it out of the way. So I can say the section type, and in this case, I get 2 choices, overflow or primary. I'm going to say overflow. That's what's ever in these 3 dots. Now, when I do it, it doesn't actually move. And the reason for that is when you specify overflow only, you still have to specify position. So it's an interesting little quirk. But if I put it in position 0, now it's over here in the overflow. And in fact, you could put all of these in the overflow. I'm not saying that's a good idea, but you could do that. All right. So, and, we've got some other stuff here. Edit all button in the list form. No, so we're not editing list form buttons. It's really just this command bar. Okay, so we're just editing things up here in the command bar. But we can do the section type. We can also get a little more advanced with our selection modes. And let's take a look at an example where we'd want to do that in just a moment. But first, I want to show you that in almost all of these properties, right, we can do these, we could say expressions in here, right? So we could say if, and we'll say, if our title, or we're going to say position column, our position, right, equals assassin, and let's make this the edit button, all right, and we're going to say whether we want to hide it or not. All right, so we're going to say if the position equals assassin, right, then yeah, hide that thing. Otherwise, let's not. And so that looks a little weird at first, right? Now I've picked one that isn't visible here, but it really only happens when you have a selection. So if I pick Seabiscuit, hey, edit. If I pick Pokey, hey, edit. That's pretty that good. Oh, edit in grid view. All right, so I got edit in grid view and so on. But the idea is here we can write expressions to do all sorts of things. You can also simplify these expressions to not have an if statement. You could just have position equals, right? So you just have something that evaluates to true or false, and that will work as well, whether that's hide, the title, the text, the icon name, position, and whether it's primary. You cannot do it for section type or the other one, which is selection modes. So let's look at an example of where I find this extremely helpful. All right, so let's just get rid of that, and we're going to go to another list. So we took a look, and in fact, if you're interested in this, because we're not really going to go through this, we created a list. It has a flow associated with it. We created a button that only shows the flow when it matters, right? It'll only launch the flow then, and it has this idea of a progress. If you're interested in that, Dave will probably paste the link, but there is a video on our YouTube channel called Displaying Progress of Power Automate Flows and Your SharePoint Lists. And if you take a look at that, that'll walk all through that. But what I really want to look at is there's an issue here, and that's this automate button, right? When I pick this, I've got it automatically not selecting that, but I have an automate happens here, right? That's got my rules, but it has my flow here, which doesn't actually make sense, right? I don't want to do that flow. Ooh, thanks, David. Great. Right, so I don't want to do that flow at this time, so I really want to control that experience. And so I can tell you just ignore that, don't click that. Also request sign off. I accidentally clicked that one time. I don't remember how to remove it, whatever it is. Don't click that either. So what can I do about that? Well, you might guess that we're going to apply one of these things we just did. So I'm going to format the current view. All right, I'm going to go to advanced mode so I can write this myself. And we're just going to grab one for time here, and then I'll explain what it does. All right, let's make that a little bigger so we can see it. So what I've done is I'm targeting this automate menu. Now, the problem is, right, it's got rules. I don't want to take away rules in general, right, but I want to take away my items here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say selection mode. So I'm saying when there's a single item selected or a multi-item selected, hide it, right? I don't want it to show in those cases. In other words, it's fine to show right here, but as soon as you select an item, get rid of it, right? Don't make it an option anymore. And that takes care of that problem for me. And you can do that with all sorts of items, which really, again, provides that guidance. So now we're ensuring they're not running the flow and doesn't need to run. We're only running through our kind of guided way, which provides guidance around the buttons and so on. So that's exciting. Woo! So that's that. And I'm going to run over here, and I just want to point this out real quick. So take a look at this. This is the idea of all of the different things you can set, right? Again, most of these things evaluate to true or false. You can write true in a string. You can write true without strings. That's kind of up to you. And everything but these last two can be expressions. So section type and selection modes cannot be expressions, just these guys. And if you're looking for more details on these, you can always click on that schema, and it will tell you everything that's possible right there in the browser. Okay, so we've got 4 minutes. I'm going to try and show you something else just really, really quick, just for fun. And we're going to pretend it's a new demo. Oh, hey, everybody, I'm Chris. Oh, okay, great. We did it. We're on a new demo. All right, so we go to our site here. And last week or the week before, I don't know, sometime I was in Vegas with some of these other guys, and we set up this exciting list, and all of it is fed with this, Microsoft form. We've shown some of that on how to do that, but the whole idea is it comes to this list, right? So we've got data coming in, and that's exciting, and we want to do something else here. So I've created a couple of views, right? I've got a honeycomb view, which is a cool one. It doesn't really mean anything in this case, but it's very pretty. I've got a recent comments view that just shows the last three items that came in and kind of shows their comments, bigger to smaller. And then I can even add a new view, right? So I'm going to create a new view, and we're going to call this heat map. And we're going to make this like this here. So now it's just like this. And I'm going to run over to our GitHub Pnp list formatting repo. I'm going to go to our view samples, and I'm going to run down, and I'm going to grab a sample called heat map, which is a new one we've put in here. And I'm just going to grab the JSON for that directly. And it's a big one, so I'm just going to scroll all the way down. One moment. Okay, so it is a big one. All right, so I'm going to copy that, and I'm just going to paste that here at the current view, and I'm going to advanced mode, and I'm going to paste that sucker, right? So we can see what that looks like. Let's preview that. Now there's something wrong, which is my state column is slightly different. So I think it states here. And so what we're going to do is we're going to swap out the column. I hit a Control F, just so you're aware. You can do that. So wherever it says states, I actually want in my list, my column is state, right, with a single. So I'm just going to replace all of those. And let's preview that. And there we go. Now we've got it working. Right. So what's happening here is this is a layered SVG, right? So the idea is we are using absolute positioning, and we are positioning these SVGs one over the other, and then we are drawing at opacity 0.2 whenever a state is included in our column, the state. And what that does, it has the effect of darkening the state the more times it's mentioned, right? So we get this kind of heat map approach. So that's a cool way to visualize our list. So we're going to save that, and then we're going to add one more because we've got a goal in mind here. We're going to create a new view, and we're going to call this one gauge, and we'll just create that. And what we're going to do is we're going to take this, and we're going to take this, and we're going to add a totals column, right? So we're going to say on our rating, we want an average. What's the average rating? That's exciting. And then we're going to come in here, and we're going to show and hide columns because we only care about the one column in this case. So let's go over here, and where's the show hide columns? Over here, add columns, show hide columns. And we're going to take away everything but our rating column for this one. We're going to apply, make sure we've got everything here. All right, and then we're going to format the current view. And I'm going to take a format that is also on the site, but I've just got also here just for quickness. And let's just grab a footer format. So what we're going to do is we're trying to format just that little bottom part, right? So we're going to copy that, and we're going to paste that inside here. Booyah. There we go. So now we've taken a gauge. Again, this is a sample that's available to you, right? And now we've got a format here, which is pretty cool. But what I'm going to show you is the idea of a composed format. So I have a footer format, but I can go a little further in this case. And in addition to my footer format, right up at the top here, I'm going to apply a couple of generic things, hide the selection, hide the column header. And I have a row formatter, which in this case just hides every row. Very exciting format. But it has the effect of making this just this gauge. Right, so that's exciting. So I saved that, and what I could do with all of this, and the reason we did all this is if I go to my home site and I edit this page, I've got it, I've got a couple of two-column sections here. I'm going to grab the list web part. I'm going to grab my field notes list. All right, and if I go and edit this, I could say the view on this one we'll say is the recent comments. We'll just apply that. All right, we'll turn these two off, so we'll hide those. All right, we'll come over here and we're going to do the same thing. I'm going to say the list, add field notes. All right, and we're going to say this view is the honeycomb, and let's make that small. Boop, boop. I apply that. There's our honeycomb, and the other thing is we got to make this one kind of small too. The idea is I'm just using the list web parts all on different views of that same list, right? So this one, we're going to go grab that heat map view. I'll make this one a little bit bigger. I happen to know that one doesn't fit very well otherwise, right? We apply. I've got our heat map. And then we come over here and we're going to grab our list one last time, field notes, and we're going to grab the gauge view. All right, we'll make that also small and hide these things. We'll apply. And then we can add, our titles here. We'll call this the average rating. We'll call this states, and so on, right? So we can have all these as, recent comments. And then we'll make this as, PDVs. There we go. But the idea here is we've taken a single view of a list that's coming in from forms, right? And we've got all sorts of things hooked to that. We can do everything else. But now we're taking different views, all of these, which are samples in our list formatting repo, and we've applied them on a page, and we've essentially built a dashboard so we could watch as list items come in and see what's going on. So we have kind of an aggregate view here. We've also got a fancy map. Right. And we could go further. We could link these things together. We could do all sorts of really, really neat stuff. And I didn't deploy a solution. I didn't have to write anything in Power BI. If I wanted to, I could have. Maybe I wanted to bring in, because this is a modern page, I want to bring in like a Twitter feed, right? I can mix and match all the other web parts with this and really create kind of a dynamic application. All right. So I know I'm over time, so I'm just going to jump back to the slides and then we'll be done. All right. There you go. That's about the list footer. Very exciting. Again, we have a dedicated video on that. If you want to look at a little more detail of how you might draw that sample the gauge is also available. Here are those links. I'm sure David's going to paste those in the chat for those that are joining the call live. But for everyone else, if you just go to that list formatting repo, every single one of those I just showed is in the view samples. There's also some command bar prompt samples as well. And that's all I got. Thanks, everybody. Woo!
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. There are stables of stallions celebrating everywhere for the return of warrior horses. Very, very cool stuff. Let's go back to the slides. And thank you again to our two awesome presenters, Tommy and Chris, for today's presentations and demos. Really great stuff. Recording will be available within 24 hours on the Microsoft 365 community YouTube channel, aka.ms/m365pnp/videos. Subscribe today. You'll get the alerts. You'll know exactly when it's available. You can always follow us on Twitter at Microsoft 365 Dev or at M365PNP. The next M365 General Dev call will be 2 weeks from today, April 28th, 7 a.m. Pacific time. Next week, we will have our VB Connections and SharePoint Framework call April 21st at 7 a.m. Pacific time as well. The collection of other community calls is available here too. We've got our platform call, as mentioned, which occurs every week on Tuesday. Adaptive cards, a Microsoft Identity Platform, Office add-ins, Power Apps, which is next week, and there's going to be a change there. So we invite everyone to take a look there. It's going to be exciting. Some very, very cool and familiar community opportunities are going to occur there. Then we've got our two calls, the M365 Community and VB Connection SharePoint Framework. Get all of these at aka.ms/m365pnp. Thank you, everybody, for the fantastic conversation and collaboration in the chat. You are amazing. Keep doing awesome stuff. Have a great weekend.